Good afternoon, students. In this video, we're going to go over run-on sentences. And so what is a run-on sentence? A run-on sentence is when you have two sentences together with either an unnecessary comma or you're missing a period. And you just have two sentences that just run together. For instance, an example of a run-on sentence is if I said, John ate dinner, he went to bed. And then there's no pause, no comma, nothing. That's an example of a run-on sentence. Two sentences that run into each other is known as a run-on sentence. Now, and then there are different kinds of run-on sentences. You can have what I just said when if you're just missing a period, that's known as a fused sentence, run-on sentence. If I put in John ate dinner, comma, he went to bed, that's a comma splice because you're putting an unnecessary comma in the middle of two sentences. So how do we fix run-on sentences? There are many ways to fix a run-on sentence. You can say John ate dinner, period, and then you capitalize he went to bed. Okay, that's two complete simple sentences. Or you can add a comma and a coordinating conjunction. You could say John went to bed, John ate dinner, comma, and he went to bed. Or you can put in a transition word. John went to bed, semicolon, John ate dinner, semicolon, in addition, he went to bed. So you could either have a period, capitalize, comma, and a coordinating conjunction, or a semicolon and a transition word with in addition. Another way of connecting these two sentences is to add a subordinating conjunction. In other words, right after John ate dinner, he went to bed. So those are the different ways in which you can connect two sentences together and avoid having a run-on sentence. So those are also the different ways in which you can use subordinating and coordinating conjunctions for sentence variety, which is what I covered in a previous video. So I will be using the Rules by Writers book, 8th edition, and I will now share my screen and give you some examples from that book on what is a run-on sentence. Run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are independent clauses that have not been joined correctly. An independent clause is a word group that can stand alone as a sentence. When two independent clauses appear in one sentence, they must be joined in one of these ways, with a comma and a coordinating conjunction, and, but, or, nor, for, so, yet, with a semicolon, or occasionally with a colon or a dash. Recognizing run-on sentences. There are two types of run-on sentences. When a writer puts no mark of punctuation and no coordinating conjunctions between two independent clauses, the result is called a fused sentence. So that's what I said before. If you have a sentence that's missing any kind of punctuation, then that's known as a fused sentence, because then you have two simple sentences fused together, and that's one kind of a run-on sentence. Here's an example of a run-on sentence. Air pollution poses risks to all humans. And that's an independent clause. That's one complete thought. It can be deadly for asthma sufferers. And so right here, you're missing a period, and so that's why these two sentences are fused together. A far more common type of run-on sentence is the comma splice. Two or more independent clauses join with a comma, an unnecessary comma, without a coordinating conjunction. In some comma splices, the comma appears alone. Air pollution poses risks to all humans. And then here you have your unnecessary comma. You're supposed to have a period there. It can be deadly for asthma sufferers. In other comma splices, the comma is accompanied by a joining word that is not a coordinating conjunction. There are only 7 coordinating conjunctions in English. Fanboys, for, and, but, or, nor, for, so, yet. And so air pollution poses risks to all humans. And here you're not supposed to have a comma there. You're supposed to have either a semicolon or a period, but not a comma. Then, because here, however, is a transition word, it's also known as a conjunctive adverb. So when you have a transition word of addition, actually, is a transition word of contrast, you can have either a period and a comma, or you could have a semicolon and a comma, but you can't have a comma and a comma. However, is a transitional expression and cannot be used with only a comma to join two independent clauses. So recognizing run-on sentences. Does the sentence contain two independent clauses, word groups that can stand alone as sentences? Yes. Are the clauses joined with a comma and a coordinating conjunction? No. Are the clauses joined with a semicolon? No. Then it is a run-on sentence. Does the sentence contain two independent clauses that can stand alone? No. No problem. Are the clauses joined with a comma and a coordinating conjunction? Yes. Then no problem. Are they joined with a semicolon? Yes. No problem. So if you have so you can use this flowchart to recognize a run-on sentence. A run-on sentence is when you have an unnecessary comma, that's a comma splice, or you're missing a period, then that's known as a fused sentence. Revising run-on sentences. To revise a run-on sentence, you have four choices. Use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. That's the first choice. Air pollution poses risks to all humans, comma, but it can be deadly for people with asthma. Use a semicolon. A semicolon may be used with a transition word. Air pollution poses risks to humans. Oh, and you can also just use a semicolon just to separate the two sentences. Air pollution poses risks to all humans, semicolon. It can be deadly for people with asthma. Or you can use a semicolon with a transition word. So air pollution poses risks to all humans, semicolon. However, it can be deadly for people with asthma. Make the clauses into two separate sentences. So then you could just use a period and then capitalize the next sentence. Air pollution poses risks to all humans, period. It can be deadly for people with asthma. Or you can restructure the sentence, perhaps by subordinating one of the clauses. Although air pollution poses risks to all humans, it can be deadly for people with asthma. So any of these revision techniques can help you get rid of a run-on sentence. The fourth one, and the one that requires a subordinating conjunction, that requires the most revision. And so consider separating the clauses with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. And so now that this book is going to go over each of these four ways to revise a run-on sentence. So consider separating the clauses with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions in English: and, but, or, nor, for, so, yet. When a coordinating conjunction joins independent clauses, it is usually preceded by a comma. Some lessons include exercises, comma, but completing them should not be the focus of all class periods. Many government officials privately admit that the polygraph is unreliable, comma, yet, comma, they combine to use it. Oh, there's no comma after a fanboys, right? So in fanboys, you only have the comma before the coordinating conjunction. But if you use however, then you have to have a semicolon and then a comma afterwards. So consider separating your clauses with a semicolon. Tragedy depicts the individual confronted with the fact of death. Comedy depicts the adaptability of human society. A semicolon is required between independent clauses that have been linked with a transitional expression such as however, therefore, moreover, in fact, or for example. So in his film adaptation of the short story Killings, director Todd Field changed key details of the plot, semicolon, in fact, comma. He added whole scenes that do not appear in the story. So when you use a transition word, you can have a semicolon, then you use a transition word, then the comma. A colon or a dash may be more appropriate if the first independent clause introduces the second, or if the second clause summarizes or explains the fact. In formal writing, the colon is usually preferred to the dash. Nuclear waste is hazardous. Colon, this is an indisputable fact. The female black widow, spider, is often a widow of her own making. Dash, she has been known to eat her partner after mating. A colon is an appropriate method of revision if the first independent clause introduces a quoted sentence. Nobel Peace Prize winner Al Gore had this to say about climate change, and then colon. The truth is that our circumstances are not only new, they are different, completely different than they have ever been in all of human history. Consider making the clauses into separate sentences. So then you can separate two run-on sentences by simply adding a period, and then you capitalize the first letter of the second sentence. Why should we spend money on expensive space exploration? ? We have enough underfunded program here on Earth. Some studies have suggested that sexual relationships of bonobos set them apart from common chimpanzees, period. According to Stanford, 1998, these differences have been exaggerated. And so when two quoted independent clauses are divided by explanatory words, make each clause its own sentence. It's always smart to learn from your mistakes, quipped my supervisor. And then next sentence, so you put a period, and then you would start a new sentence. It's even smarter to learn from the mistakes of others. Amen to that one. Consider restructuring the sentence, perhaps by subordinating one of the clauses. So you can add a subordinating conjunction to one of the sentences if one of the sentence's ideas is less important than the other. So if one of the independent clauses is less important than the other, turn the less important clause into a subordinate clause or phrase. One of the most famous advertising slogans is Wheaties Cereal's Breakfast of Champions, which was penned in 1933. So which was penned in 1933 is a less important detail than telling everyone that one of the most famous advertising slogans is the Wheaties Cereal Breakfast for Champions. Mary McLeod Bethune was the seventh child of former slaves. She founded the National Council of Negro Women in 1935. So minor ideas in these sentences are now expressed in subordinate clauses or phrases. So those are the different ways in which you can put together or correct or revise a fused sentence. So those 4 ways. So all you have to do is remember these 4 ways. Okay, you just have to remember these 4 ways of revising run-on sentences for your quiz, because one of your quiz questions for the LAPU crowd is what are the different ways in which you can revise run-on sentences. And this is a very common error in essays. And so that's why I've devoted this much time to going over different ways to revise your sentence structure. So let's see, did I go all the way up? Yes. So that means that I've finished this particular video on how to revise run-on sentences. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me anytime.